Amcrest is truly becoming one of my favorite go-to security camera solutions. Now, I actually checked out an older version of the camera that I'm going to talk about today, but they also sent over an Amcrest bullet camera, which you can check out the review for in the cards above. But they actually sent me an updated Indoor PTZ camera, one of their new lineups with a higher resolution and, well, kind of same features, but higher resolution. What's up YouTube, Jason here with Byte My Bits, and like I said, I am talking about a new indoor PTZ camera offered by Amcrest. And when I said earlier that Amcrest is actually becoming my favorite go-to camera series, that's because I'm using more and more of their cameras and I'm finding out that they're just reliable, pretty good quality, and overall very simple to use. And a lot of that comes from ONVIF support. They all support it hands down, and there's no like locking them down into their own little ecosystem, forcing you to use their DVRs or NVRs or their own apps only. And aside from the whole reliability and simplicity, having the open support like that is a huge deal, at least for me. So before I give you some example footage and jump into what I think about this camera, let's go over what it's called and some of those specs. Now this is the IP4M-1051B Amcrest 4 megapixel Wi-Fi PTZ indoor IP security camera. Now it is 4 megapixels, but only up to 20 frames per second at full resolution. 4 megapixels, by the way, being 2688 by 1520. This has a 120 degree super wide angle lens, supports night vision up to 32 feet, can pan a full 360 degrees and tilt 90 degrees. It has two-way audio support with a built-in speaker and microphone. You can load it up internally with a micro SD card up to 128 gigabytes. Or alternatively, you could use your own PC, NVR/NAS solution to record the footage, as well as Amcrest offering their own cloud options. For connectivity, you get dual band Wi-Fi at 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Or if you prefer, you could hook up to the RJ45 Ethernet connection on the back. Amcrest does have their own iOS or Android device mobile viewing software available, which is a free download from your app store. Now, like I said before, one of the key things with this camera, and really any Amcrest camera that I've reviewed thus far, is its simplicity. Now, normally when I set something like this up, I just plug it into my network via Ethernet cable. I find out what IP address it is, and I manually set it up utilizing the default a username and password to log in, of course changing that later. But for this particular review, I wanted to give you an idea of what it's like to set it up without plugging it into your network. And it's during this setup that you can utilize the app to tell the camera to connect to your own home Wi-Fi. Now doing this is as simple as downloading the Amcrest software, going through the prompts, scanning the QR code on the bottom, and basically just following instructions. Now, of course, this does have the option for utilizing either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz bands, but I usually put all of my cameras, which really is only a couple of them, on the 2.4 frequency. That allows me to reserve my 5 gigahertz frequency for faster things like laptops or computers. But I also try to hardwire all the things, so it doesn't really matter in the end, either way. But once you get this thing set up with the Amcrest app, you can go through and you can utilize the pan, tilt, and zoom features, otherwise known as PTZ. Now, one thing I do want to note here is that this does say PTZ on the box, but it's not actually PTZ, it's more PT. Basically, with pan, tilt, zoom, it says that the camera itself can move around the room, both up, down, left, and right. And the zoom aspect is actually changing the lens itself. That means optically, physically zooming in on an object. But with this camera, you actually don't have a physical or an optical zoom. It's only a digital zoom, up to 16 times, but it is still a digital zoom. Now, the thing I actually do like about the pan and the tilt is that it is actually pretty quick. It's easy to use, especially if you use the Amcrest app. It's just a matter of sliding your thumb across the screen or your finger across the screen, and it reacts pretty rapidly. But moving on, let's talk about the openness of this camera, the ONVIF support, and how easy it is to work with Blue Iris, or really your NVR solution of choice. Since I already actually have two Amcrest cameras hooked up to my network, it was a matter of copying the profile over. But if you are utilizing something like a Blue Iris as an example, all you have to do is point it to the IP address of the camera, type in the username and password, explore that camera utilizing Blue Iris software, and it'll automatically download all those settings. Because the camera is opened up like that, it's a breeze to add to any system that you already have. And I have to say, overall, when it comes to quality, this camera definitely puts out. I'll give you an example, and since this is an indoor camera, I will show you what it's like with the lights on and off. So setting this thing upstairs with all of the lights on, this will give you a pretty good idea of what the quality is like. I even try to kind of hide in the corners where maybe it's not as lit up as the other places, just to see what kind of contrast this camera is able to handle. And with the exception of me being all the way towards my front door where I was really in the shadows, it seemed to handle itself pretty well. And sure, you can see a little bit of grain in this footage, but overall the quality is really great. And before I show you the night vision footage, I do want to give you a side note here. And that is, when the camera switches from regular mode to night vision mode, it definitely has a bit of a delay. So if you're using this in an area where maybe lights are being turned on and off all the time, and it's going to have to constantly switch between regular and night vision, you might start to notice that delay. In this particular example here, and I will show you in real time, I flip off the light switch and it has a very noticeable, I want to say maybe almost 10-second delay before it actually turns on the night vision infrared LEDs. I wanted to note this because this seems to be a little bit slower than most of my other cameras. But anyways, moving forward, this will give you a pretty good idea of the camera's night vision quality. I did the same thing, kind of walked around the house, walked by other doors, got some pretty good distance away from the camera. And overall, I mean, it's not perfect by any definition, but it's actually very clear and definitely very usable footage. So with the night vision range up to 32 feet away, this could be a perfect solution to monitor something indoors. And I did mention before that it has two-way audio. That means it has a built-in microphone and a built-in speaker. Now, the previous version of this device that I utilized, it's the 2 megapixel version. I've always thought the audio was kind of weak. It sounds a little diluted or just screechy, and it doesn't always line up with the footage. I pretty much always blame that on Blue Iris, but I don't really know why. But either way, I think overall the microphones, they are built into it and they do definitely work. And most of the time you can make out what's going on, but it's just not super clear.
So this will give you an idea of what the audio sounds like being probably about 12 to 13 feet. One thing that I have noticed with most of the Amcrest cameras is that they do seem to have audio. They don't come through as clear, and sometimes they don't sync up with the video. I don't know if that's a Blue Iris thing or if it's but the audio is just not as clear as I wish it would be.
So overall, the Amcrest Indoor 4 megapixel PTZ camera is pretty impressive by its own right, especially for the price. And if you want to find that out, check out the links below to see exactly how much it cost. But I am definitely a fan of getting something that's pretty good quality without sacrificing major features and things like that at a reasonable price. But guys, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this camera, definitely post them in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, like, and subscribe, and have yourself a good day.